discovered that we have four tree houses on our 85 acres, and they had been unoccupied. However, we determined that they had been occupied again. So that prompted the Atlanta Police Department, along with our state and federal partners, to go back out on that property. So on Tuesday, we went out on our 85 acres. We went to those four tree houses one by one. There was protesters occupying all four tree houses. We attempted to engage those individuals in dialogue for probably 35 to 40 minutes, and they steadfastly refused to come down out of those tree houses. So after conferring with our law department, we did use an irritant, which I'm sure you saw on social media. They were saying that we pepper sprayed them. It was an irritant deployed up into the treehouse to make them uncomfortable and for them to calm down. And it was successful. So we were able to get all four of those individuals down out of that tree houses. So on that day, we ended up locking up 6 protesters. And so what we all know with those 6 protesters, none of them lived in the neighborhood. None of them lived in Atlanta, DeKalb County. None of them lived in the state of Georgia. We had one individual from South Carolina. We had an individual from California. We had an individual from Wisconsin. The ages of those 6 individuals was 20 to 25 years old. We had 6 males and 1 female that we arrested that day. And so that's just what we're dealing with out there. And so while we were out there, we did impound a vehicle, and we had an individual who was out attempting to film our officers. So we were able to get him with the hands-free law as he drove by, filming our officers. So we were able to lock him up. So these charges were made by our our state partners, the GBI and the DeKalb County. And so one of the things we charged him with, to include criminal trespass, was domestic terrorism charge that we put on them. So going forward, that is one of the charges we will be using, because that's exactly what they are. None of those people live here. They do not have a vested interest in this property. And we show that time and time again. Why is an individual from Los Angeles, California concerned about a training facility being built in the state of Georgia? And that is why we consider that domestic terrorism.
I just wanted to make a quick comment just to say that I am so pleased to see the level of charge being domestic terrorism. Just because for those of us living here, this has been a bit of a nightmare to have this continue to go on and to feel as though there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And so seeing that, it's being taken seriously and that the concern for the community is as strong as it is, at the end of the day, no matter your perspective on the project, whether you're in favor of or opposed to, it's not fair to terrorize the surrounding communities as a part of your objection to a project. So with that, very thankful for the fact that you all are out there and for the level of charges that have been applied. That's all of my comments. So I will circle back. Sharon, the floor is yours. Oh,
Sharon, you're on mute.
Share with all of us, not just you.
Yes, I know. I sort of think ditto to everything you just said. I was coming home from the airport, and while I was redirected, I was happy to see the show of force. So I have a 2-parter. One, I just want to make sure no officers were hurt, because I was told that there was a bomb there was a lot of fireworks going on. So please tell me that no fire or safety were hurt.
No officers were hurt. And what happens is they're just using large fireworks that they're setting off over there. And what happens is, they want people to call in and say, I heard a large explosion. There's a bomb out there. That is the narrative they want to drive. But at the end of the day, we're used to hearing it. And they're just very large fireworks that you would normally hear around the 4th of July. That is what it is.
Pat Culp, I see your hand is raised.
I just have a comment. This morning, I was listening to one of the regular radio stations, and I think the narrative needs to be focused on a little bit more from your department, because they were actually saying that they didn't see why it should be named a domestic terrorist. And they, and I wanted to call in, but I said, no, I probably need to stay away from this, because what they were stating is that most of the time it is not the police that's doing what's right. It is them that's trying to keep the property from, being destroyed and that kind of thing. And so that was a discussion on one of our local radio stations this morning. And I don't know whether that narrative can be put out a little bit more in terms of why you all are doing what you're doing and why you labeled them domestic terrorists. Is there any comment on that?
Yes, ma'am. We try not to get into a back and forth. So we have a media comms between the Atlanta Police Department, the GBI, and our federal partners as to what we're going to say. But what I'll tell you is what you just said was exactly right. You all can get on the radio, Allison can get on and explain to them the fear you go through, the threat of your home being burned down, and you all can articulate why it's domestic terrorism, because they're terrorizing your neighborhood over there. So it resonates coming from a person that lives there who has a vested interest in that community. Our narrative is we try not to go tit for tat with these people because that's what they want to get into a war of words. But, Patricia, if you're standing in front of a camera saying, I heard fireworks, I thought it was an explosion in my neighborhood, I watched a house under construction burn to the ground, and I'm just afraid that my house is next, that resonates with the average citizen out there.
Thank you.